Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight, the Friar Faithful are keeping hope alive. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. After a tough loss in Game 1, the San Diego Padres were looking to bounce back against the Philadelphia Phillies in Game 2 of the National League Championship Series. Here's KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer.
It's a very hot October day here in San Diego, and that's helped heating up the Padres' bats in a major way here in Game 2 of the NLCS against the Philadelphia Phillies. We're up a couple of stories inside Petco Park on the legend, and earlier today we spoke with some fans about this extended playoff run and where it goes from here. While the Padres didn't score any runs in the first game of the series, most Padres fans aren't letting that weigh them down. Tuesday's midday game wasn't an ideal time for many workers or students, but they found a way to make it out.
I work from home, and I'm calling the stadium home today.
There you go. I emailed my teacher saying I wasn't going to be at school today, and then my mom called the office, the attendance office, and said I wasn't going to show up, called in sick.
The Padres also lost their first game of the previous series to the Dodgers, so the team's familiar with that scenario.
As a baseball fan, there's a lot of superstitions. You just got to go out, you got to play your game, go out and win. And we'll be loud out there for them, too.
And fans have faith that this team can rally back yet again.
We're better on the road. We're way better on the road. So we're going to win the 2 there, and then clinch it here on Monday.
Winning the last series against their Los Angeles rivals in some ways felt like an astonishing accomplishment in its own right, says Padres fan Daniel Castaneda.
It means the world to us, you know what I mean? It's like a mini World Series for us, you know, for us to get that far, you know what I mean? Like to beat the best, you know what I mean? They had 111 wins and we beat them.
The Padres will travel to Philadelphia for 3 games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if needed. Here at Petco Park, there's going to be watch parties for at least the Friday and Saturday games. And if the series still isn't over after 5 games, the 2 teams will come back here to Petco Park for Games 6 and 7. Reporting from downtown San Diego, Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
It seems like prices are rising for just about everything, and soon it could hit your utility bill. California utility regulators are mulling over a rate hike request from San Diego Gas and Electric. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has the details.
A regulatory filing submitted by the San Diego utility asked the California Public Utilities Commission to raise the cost of delivering electricity by about 8% and local gas rates by just under 6% next year. SDG&E is asking to raise the delivery charges, not the actual cost of the electricity. It is unclear how the request will impact local power aggregators, which are buying power for tens of thousands of customers in San Diego County. SDG&E's Scott Kreider says that will likely be figured out next year.
Once San Diego Community Power determines its rates, for next year, if there's any change, then we can do a full bill forecast. But we wanted to make sure that we were sharing what the delivery rates are going to be for SDG&E.
Kreider told city officials the jump in delivery costs for next year is needed to pay for wildfire prevention, a new billing system, battery storage, and electric vehicle infrastructure. The utility is seeking an additional $250 million in revenue that they did not account for in the spring.
We're seeing continued increases in the need for infrastructure investment, largely driven again by that $3 billion in wildfire safety spending. And at the same time, we're also seeing a decrease in sales, about 2% for our residential customers year over year. And the reason why is largely because of rooftop solar.
Kreider says the company wants to see more rooftop solar, but that customers generating their own power are cutting into the utility's revenues. Another SDG&E rate request for 2024 is also calling for a 9% electricity rate hike. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Good news for drivers. Gas prices in San Diego County have fallen under $6 per gallon, and more help could soon be on the way. The average price of regular gas dropped 5.5 cents today to $5.93 a gallon. That's down about 50 cents since spiking to a record 2 weeks ago. And now, as Ivan Rodriguez reports, the Biden administration has new plans to combat what you pay at the pump.
President Joe Biden announcing new steps in his administration's ongoing plan to balance the volatile global oil market amid the raging war in Ukraine, while looking to ease soaring gas prices at home.
Gas prices hit almost every family in this country, and they squeeze their family budgets.
The administration hopes the release of an additional 15 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve will be enough to dampen the high prices, but is leaving the door open to releasing an additional supply if necessary.
We're calling it a ready and release plan. This allows us to move quickly to prevent oil price spikes and respond to international events.
Wednesday's announcement also detailed plans to replenish the nation's emergency reserve when prices fall to $70 per barrel, which is now at a 40-year low.
That means oil companies can invest to ramp up production now. With confidence, they'll be able to sell their oil to us at that price in the future.
And put pressure on oil companies to cut costs to consumers.
Bring down the price you charge at the pump to reflect what you pay for the product.
While these moves will take some time to be implemented, AAA says drivers are making adjustments.
Instead of going to the grocery store and maybe going to pick up the kids, you're doing everything at once to try to save on the gas you have.
But will likely be undeterred from making those upcoming holiday road trips.
The desire to get back out there is definitely strong.
In Washington, Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
Amtrak and Metrolink train service will be suspended for longer than first anticipated. Repairs could be going on through January for the service between San Diego and Los Angeles. The service was stopped between San Diego and Orange on September 30th after tracks were found to have shifted in San Clemente after a storm surge. A similar problem happened last year and tracks were shut down for 2 weeks as boulders were added to the eroding coastline. Riders can take a bus service now during the construction. A new state law went into effect in January that requires law enforcement agencies to release records about officer discrimination. But investigative reporter Claire Tregesser found most local police departments say they have nothing to report.
It was a night in Vegas that didn't stay in Vegas. In January 2020, Sheriff's Deputy Andrew Phillips and his girlfriend spent hours at a casino drinking heavily with a group of German tourists. That's according to a sheriff's report. Later, the group went up to a hotel room. That's where things took a turn. Phillips allegedly punched a hole in a wall and pulled out his gun. He was arrested by Las Vegas police.
Well, he's claiming that that's his girlfriend. She's in the room. They got in a fight over Russian Nazis. That's exactly what he's claiming.
Phillips was fired for breaking several sheriff's department rules, drinking while armed with a gun, and saying he's in law enforcement to avoid arrest.
Well, if I'm not under arrest, can I not be handcuffed? I'm no danger to you.
But all of this would have stayed secret if Phillips hadn't broken one other rule.
Who are you claiming to? German idiots.
He said discriminatory things about the Germans.
Russian, German, where the hell they are. They're speaking some other damn language.
A new state law says when departments find their officers say or do discriminatory things, those records have to be public. But San Diego County police agencies say they have nothing to report. The Phillips case is just one of 6 released. But does that mean all officers are behaving correctly? Nancy Skinner, the state senator who wrote the law, is dubious.
If you have a culture in an agency where they, number one, don't even want to recognize misconduct, so even if the officer is behaving in the way I described, they don't sustain a finding, then that doesn't serve us either.
It could be that the reviews aren't done thoroughly, so no discrimination is found. Or it could be that officers don't want to report on each other.
I mean, I was scared to report it because I didn't want to be known as like the weak female or, you know, the quote unquote snitch or rat.
Stacey Ralph is a former sheriff's detective suing the department for sexual harassment.
So I think there's this fear of reporting because then, you know, everybody looks at you like, oh, I can't work with that person because they're a snitch and they can't take jokes.
There's also reluctance to report from members of the public.
The first big issue is that the public does not think that these discrimination claims will be taken seriously.
Rashawn Ray is a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. He says people may not want to go into a station or give out personal information to file a report. And even if they do,
that discrimination claims are extremely hard to prove because there is a lot of information and evidence that needs to be gathered. And it does oftentimes come down to a community member said and a police officer said. And that's the reason why video evidence is so important and body-worn camera evidence is so important.
Video evidence is crucial in these cases. So says Lieutenant John Boyce, who runs the San Diego Department's Internal Affairs. He calls it body-worn cameras, or BWCs.
I can think of several examples where there's an allegation of some insensitive term being used, and when we review the BWC, we clearly see that it never occurred.
He says the low number of discrimination cases is a sign of progress.
I would like to think that it just shows that our the deputy sheriffs and employees of the San Diego Sheriff's Department are doing their job impartially and doing what we expect of them.
But community members who deal with police say there is discrimination going on, and more than just sheriff's deputies like Andrew Phillips saying things about Germans. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Biden's top economic advisor discusses the plan to release more of the nation's oil reserves. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
We're continuing our midterm election coverage. Tonight, we turn to San Diego City Council District 8. Voters will decide on whether to give Vivian Moreno another 4-year term. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says her opponent is a familiar one.
Antonio Martinez lost the District 8 seat in 2018 by fewer than 600 votes. He's a staffer for Congressman Juan Vargas and a member of the San Isidro School Board.
I feel that our communities in District 8 have been neglected.
Martinez says he's running because he thinks District 8 hasn't been given its fair share of city resources, and he can do a better job fixing that inequity.
Frankly, I feel that the current person that's there now is not doing the job to get that done. So I feel it's appropriate to, or necessary for me to put my hat in.
You know, one of the things that I often tell my colleagues is that we've been left behind.
Incumbent council member Vivian Moreno agrees her constituents haven't seen the same level of investment as other communities. But she says she's made progress on raising the priority of projects in District 8, like the planned expansion of the San Isidro Transit Center. Here she is at a town hall last April.
When I joined SANDAG board, and when I joined MTS, I said this has to be our #1 project. Why? Because 12,000 people go on this trolley on any given day.
The 2022 election is unlikely to be as close as the 2018 matchup between Moreno and Martinez. They were the only candidates in the June primary, and Moreno won that race by 27 points. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego voters are being asked to fill 2 vacancies in the San Diego Superior Court system. And if you're at a loss for who to support, there's one resource that can help. The San Diego County Bar Association has been evaluating judicial candidates since 1978. They conduct confidential interviews with the candidates and rate them based on their qualifications. Association President David Myshak says the criteria includes impartiality.
Compassion and understanding, the decisiveness of the person, their knowledge of the law, their professional reputation, all factors that go into who is it that ultimately, if you had to walk in a courtroom, you would want to be judging your case.
And you can find the Bar Association's judicial evaluations at sdcba.org. For more on the election, you can check out the KPBS Voter Hub. That is where you'll find all of our reporter stories, our explainers of some of the key races, and an in-depth ballot guide tailored to your district. You can get there by clicking the Voter Hub link on the KPBS homepage. Research has shown that COVID-19 can have lasting impacts on the body, weeks, months, and even years after an infection. Now, as Luz Pena reports, a new study suggests the virus could age you from the inside out.
After over 2.5 years of COVID research, scientists are finally seeing the first data points that prove a dramatic change in human organs after a COVID infection.
So you can start thinking about getting COVID almost as an accelerant to aging, almost as the viral infection accelerates the aging process in people.
Dr. Siad Al-Ali, director of the Clinical Epidemiology Center at Washington University in St. Louis, gathered data from millions of people across the country. Their studies on kidney outcomes in long COVID in the brain, and long COVID in the heart had similar patterns, all pointing to multiple human organs aging faster after COVID. The majority happening among people who were hospitalized, but also some with mild COVID symptoms.
Almost about 3 to 4 years in the span of just one. What we've seen is that people are losing about 3 to 4% kidney function in the year that follows that infection. That usually happens with aging, in actually 3 or 4 years of aging.
So there's a group at Mission Bay.
We took these findings to Dr. Michael Peluso, infectious diseases specialist at UCSF. His team was one of the first in the country to begin long COVID research in April of 2020.
Now what we're trying to do is actually figure out what is the biology of what causes those long-term effects.
Dr. Peluso said his team has an idea of why some organs may be experiencing aging or injury after COVID.
Some of the theories for what might be causing long COVID symptoms include persistence of the virus. So the virus, instead of coming and going, it might stick around. Inflammation, autoimmune problems, changes in the microbiome, the good bacteria that are in our bodies.
Even though more years of data are necessary, Dr. Al-Ali believes this increased aging process will eventually stop.
So my hunch is from the data and also my hope that this really will eventually flatten out. And there are some early indication that this really may be the case.
And people have more options for a COVID-19 booster, as the FDA has just given authorization for Novavax's version of the shot for adults. This is the 4th COVID vaccine that's available in the U.S., and according to the CDC, only half of American adults have received their first booster. The Public Health Agency hopes giving more choices will help booster rates. Paper and metal license plates are so last year. California now allows all drivers the option of digital license plates. Proponents say they're safer and more convenient for drivers. Dustin Dorsey breaks down what you need to know.
California is driving into the 21st century. Say goodbye to the lone choice of traditional license plates and hello to the opportunity to own digital license plates for your car.
It is a product of convenience, and I'm all about giving people choice here in the state of California.
Assemblymember Lori Wilson co-authored the bill set to become law, allowing for the more than 27 million drivers to go digital with their vehicles. Joining Michigan and Arizona, supporters say it's all about making life easier for drivers. The R plates from California-based company Reviver allow for customization and registration renewal without even walking into the DMV.
It's really going to be much more beneficial for them and make our processing much more efficient. It's a big change. We're no longer your father's DMV. And I think it's something that we can all embrace and be part of.
No more long lines at the DMV is just the start. The other benefits are the safety features. The license plates will display different messages regarding emergency situations, like if the car is stolen or if there's an Amber Alert in the area.
Looking on the back of a vehicle, if I'm driving behind a vehicle and I see this, it will give me a cause for concern and now be on alert for what I could potentially see.
The plates also have built-in tracking technology to help locate the stolen cars. But that brings up questions of privacy. Could they be wrongfully tracked or even hacked into? Assemblymember Wilson says tracking features can be disabled, and the bill allows for regular review of safety measures.
Any time that our CHP or we feel like safety is a concern in terms of license plates being altered in any kind of way, they can pull that back and make sure that that is taken care of before its continued use.
The wired or battery-powered plates can be purchased with monthly rates starting at $19.95 a month and yearly rates at $215.40 a year for a 4-year agreement.
We see it here in California for things like homeowners insurance and fire zones. Now the Treasury Department is taking a closer look at how extreme weather is factored into rates. The Federal Insurance Office is asking for data broken down by zip code. This is the first time the department has asked for this information as it examines the role of climate change on the insurance industry.
Wow, we've definitely experienced a hot day all the way to the coast. And hey, it's still going to be warm into Thursday and dry, but there are some temperature changes, some big ones coming up here as we go down the road. Here in the short term, still talking about some heat lingering. The heat advisories have been up again for the coast and out towards some of the coastal valleys. Not as hot, of course, as we talk about to the mountains. And compared to normal over the deserts, not all that hot, not that far above normal. Now, changes are going to be happening, though, at least for now. Notice the clear skies in place. But as we see a storm make its way into the Pacific Northwest, our wind flow will start to come out of the southwest. So we'll see that onshore flow. And, of course, with the wind direction, that means everything. With the weather here, we'll start to see the clouds rolling back in. And along with that, a temperature shift. But for tonight, still warm. In fact, look at that low, 66 in San Diego. Another night will be warmer from Chula Vista in San Diego than it will be in Borrego Springs. Mount Laguna falling off to right around that 50-degree mark. Here's a look at Futurecast. Still looking at the offshore flow for now. You're starting to notice the change off to the north, and we'll see that trend as we go through time. We'll start to see some of those clouds returning to the coast and even some of the inland valleys. Still above normal as we go into your Thursday. San Diego Oceanside up into the 80s, but not quite as hot. Again, today was the day where our heat peaked. Back east, Mount Laguna 72, 92, the high temperature in Borrego Springs. So again, high pressure, but cooler at the coast, immediate coast. And as we work our way into Friday, a little bit more seasonable. All right, let's break down those temperatures then now and start off with the coast. And we're falling back into the 60s here. Low clouds rolling back in, heading in toward the weekend. Inland locations, falling temperatures the next couple of days. There will be some clouds in place, and toward the mountains, look at this, the 50s returning by Sunday. The deserts dry and also cooling off. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
The Internal Revenue Service will let you keep more of your income next year thanks to inflation. Since tax rates are automatically adjusted for inflation, there will be higher cutoffs for all 7 income tax brackets. And the standard deduction, the baseline income people can claim tax-free, will see the largest increase since 1985. The standard deduction for married couples will rise by $1,800, and for individuals, it's a $900 increase. If you're planning a trip to Disneyland over the holiday season, you might have some sticker shock. Ticket prices in California have gone up, and in some cases even more than the annual inflation rate of 8.2%. Things like hotel, valet parking, and food at the parks will also cost more money. A family of 4 could look to spend nearly $1,100 for a single day for tickets and parking to both parks, which would include the skipping line service. And the cheapest ticket, well, $104 per day. The city of Lemon Grove honored a pioneer of broadcasting today with a tree planting ceremony. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado was there.
We bless this digging and this tree for generations to come.
City community leaders, family, and friends gathered in Lemon Grove to honor broadcast pioneer Tayati Howard by planting a tree.
We're gonna all do this together. There we go.
And laying a brick in the city hall's promenade. Shane Harris, the president of the People's Association of Justice Advocates, put together the ceremony to honor his mentor in broadcasting after learning Howard had been diagnosed with brain cancer.
As much time, energy, and commitment that this man gave to our region, it is the least we can do to make sure that he gets his flowers while he's still here with us.
During his 50 years as a radio personality in San Diego, Howard's smooth voice reached far beyond the county. He played a pivotal role in getting black music on the airwaves, but had to broadcast from Tijuana to get his own voice heard and black music played.
It's always been a mission of never give up. When I came to San Diego in 1970, I couldn't get a job outside the military, especially as a broadcaster, but I knew I wanted to follow in my mother and father's footsteps as legendary pioneer broadcasters, so I didn't give up.
Howard not only reflected on that time, but also had a message for people still fighting for opportunities.
And I think what happened was over 50 years of broadcasting at 8 different radio stations, 1 TV station here in San Diego, they got the message. I didn't give up. Why should they give up?
One of those 8 stations was Kpbs. Howard's daughter, Mercedes, is a third-generation broadcaster.
I know I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that guy over there doing Lovers for Friends and sneaking into his room trying to watch him do a show. So we thank you and we love you as a family, and we can't thank you guys enough.
But most remarked not on Howard's celebrity, but on his community service, which even earned him 2 presidential awards from Barack Obama. Howard raised nearly $2 million for nonprofits and mentored dozens of youth. And he says there's more to come.
Never give up. I'm not done yet. I may have been diagnosed with cancer. I'm still giving back to the community. As long as God allows me to stay on the earth and give back to the community, that's what I'm going to be doing.
Kitty Alvarado, Kpbs News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.